there, welcome to Lip Talk. I'm Marie Fedorov, the lawyer, and today I'm here with Meg Ritchie, the stylist, Nicole Carter, the agent, and we also have a special guest, actually our first special guest, Ben McGrath, our expert financial planner from Innovative Financial Solutions. So thank you for coming in, Ben.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So it's been a tough year this year, and you've seen a lot being in financial planning. So can you tell us a little bit about superannuation and what's happened this year?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's probably been a year like no other, really. I mean, March is when this virus sort of took hold, and there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of fear. And I mean, if I talk about from a market point of view and a super point of view, March was horrendous. There was dramatic falls on stock markets, circa 30-35%, when there was just question marks of where it will end up. Since then, though, I mean, and at the time it was pretty much the fastest sort of bear market on record, so it was quite extreme. But then it sort of turned on a dime, and there's been a fair bit of positivity post then. So there's been a pretty strong recovery to the point where it turned into the fastest bull market on record. So it's very abnormal what's been taking place the last 3-4 months, to the point now where things are so buoyant and strong and positive, we're sort of a little bit confused as to why we're sort of seeing these levels.
Yeah, where it's going to go.
Where it's going to go. Because it's sort of as though there's no risk being priced into what's happening at the moment. So it makes us a little bit uneasy around, is this sustainable or not? Yep. So to answer your question, you would have seen super balances drop dramatically, which would have pretty much wrecked the fin year returns in most funds.
Can you talk to us a bit more about that? Like people withdrawing super, what's happened with super? And
yeah, sure. So I mean, a big initiative at the time was obviously the government launching their stimulus packages, and one of the huge announcements was you could access your super with certain provisions. I mean, a person could have taken a $10,000 lump sum withdrawal last fin year and another hit this fin year. So there's certain criteria that needs to be met or did need to be met. Things such as being placed on JobKeeper or JobSeeker, having a reduction in work hours or losing a job. So that proved very popular. I mean, last time I checked, I think about 30 bill had been withdrawn from the super system.
Isn't that good or bad for us? What should we be doing with our supers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it needed to be done, but it's interesting because the government didn't do that during the GFC.
Yes,
so this
they didn't.
That's right, and that was a fairly extreme event as well. So it sort of just shows how seriously they took this and how worried they were that people may not have enough to live off and so forth, and they were being laid off. So I think it was a positive.
So Ben, why do you think the government actually gave us that option to pull our super? Like, what was the reason behind that? And so early on?
Sure. I think it just shows how concerned they were about people not being able to afford, their cost of living. Jobs were being lost, incomes were reducing, and that's obviously an asset, a big pot of money that most people have access to or have. Yeah. So they thought it's probably a quick fix to sort of keep people keep their head above water. Yeah. And like I said, it's worked well. That just extended the window actually until the end of the year was to cut off in September. So I'm sure there'll be plenty more that take advantage as well between now and then.
So what implications does that have on an individual? So obviously, from my perspective as a client of yours, we've had conversations about super and doing what the government are suggesting. What are the long-term benefits or not benefits of somebody doing that and actioning it?
I think it's all relative. So I mean, if you're young, so you've got a lot of time left in the workforce.
Thank you.
That's right.
Missed that one.
10,000 here or there won't be completely detrimental to your retirement. Whereas if you were 2 years out from retirement, had a relatively small balance, well, in relative terms, it's a lot of money to pull out, 10 or 20K. But if a client has time to make contributions going forward, and in other words, top it up over the next 20 years, I don't think it will destroy someone's retirement. But you need to be conscious of it. It will have an impact.
Yeah. So I know from a personal perspective that my husband and I made a call to pull on our superannuation, and we did it mainly because I'm looking at buying commercial premises. So we wanted to use that money to our advantage and hopefully spend it in the right way. But also there was a slight tax benefit from that, because obviously we're not going to be re-taxed on that money. And hopefully we feel like if we don't do that and we don't commit to that opportunity, then we would put that money back straight into our superannuation, because I know that that's an opportunity for you to be able to do as well. So if we were talking to our listeners about whether it's a good thing or what they should spend their money on, what kind of advice would you maybe give on that, my scenario, but somebody else's scenario of why they might pull on it and when they should pull on it? Because is it not a good or bad thing, but what are the consequences and also the benefits of doing that?
Sure. I just think that the reason for doing it has to be the right reason, is the first thing I'd say. Like I've had plenty of phone calls come in from clients sort of asking, how do I get it? Am I entitled to it? So I basically, I'll run through a list of criteria, and ultimately it's their decision. But
Have they, when they call you to ask you those questions, do they tell you what they're going to spend the money on?
Not so much, but you sort of get an idea. I mean, I know, to answer that, I don't think every Australian has probably spent the money in the most effective manner. There's a bit of talk around, they're helping the retail industry by buying TVs and so forth like that, but it wasn't the genuine intention of the government opening up the pot of super. So, but yeah, so as long as people sort of don't, let's just say, squander it, like I said, it's meant to help people, and it's probably a once in a lifetime opportunity, I would say. So as long as it's used wisely, and that could even be a matter of saving it, because I think we don't know when the average job will be, will recommence and the economy will be completely open again. So I think that's another point. It doesn't have to be spent straight away. It's just there for a rainy day in case 2020 turns into 2021 and so on and so on. So,
it's funny you should say that, Ben, because I've had a few clients, obviously being in property, some have decided to use it maybe for renovations, but I have had some girlfriends who've also used it for cosmetic surgery.
Yeah.
So it's been quite mixed in terms of we've got access to this money. We may not necessarily use it for what it should be used for. It could be treat value, so that's what it's being used for.
Yeah, and there's a bit of that going on, and I think it's going to happen when you have an initiative like this. But and to be honest, who knows? It's probably unlikely that the ATO will really back check this and look into where it was spent, because there's just so, like I said, when you got 30 billion of withdrawals,
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
it's a lot of people to check. Probably, I think it's about 1 million people. So it's probably going to be one of those things where people are going to spend it the way they want to spend it, whether it's to enhance themselves or
and that's
or
okay.
save. That's right, and it is what it is at the moment. Yeah.
Yes,
So when you talked initially about people being eligible for it, what do those eligible people look like? What is it? If you were talking to a client and you were giving them advice on maybe doing it, what does that person look like?
So it's pretty clear and cut. So obviously, if you are on a Centrelink benefit, so let's just say job seeker or job keeper, that's going to open up the door. If you're an employee, a reduction in work hours by 20% or more. If you're self-employed, a reduction in turnover of 20% or more. So these are the sorts of things where, so you genuinely need to have been impacted. So if someone has had no impact whatsoever, like I said, technically it's really not for them. But because it's been done by the client, there's probably there's no one checking it.
So Ben, they've just extended the opportunity to be able to pull on your super. So obviously with JobKeeper, JobSeeker, and all of those other opportunities around, why have they done that? Why have they extended it, and how long have they extended it for?
I think because as we've seen in the last few weeks, phase 2 may have commenced with this outbreak. So there was a bit of fear creeping in of, well, how long is this going to go on for? Therefore, once again, let's just extend this cushion impact for the average Australian. So they pushed it from September to the 31st of December.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so if someone hasn't withdrawn their $10,000 in this financial year.
Yes.
They've now got until the end of the calendar year to do so.
Okay.
There was, like I said before, the opportunity to take 10,000 in the previous financial year. That gate is now closed as of the 30th of June. So if you didn't withdraw money then, you've missed that opportunity, but you've got one more opportunity before the 31st of December.
Okay, so does that mean you can pull the full 20,000 or is it just 10,000?
No, it's 10,000, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and in terms of how you go about it, well, it's very direct. You must do it online via the MyGov app or the portal. So and that's why advisors aren't involved with this withdrawal process.
You're not involved, sorry.
No, so it must be done directly through the MyGov app,
Yeah.
which is linked to the ATO.
Yes.
I was going to ask that. So why is that, Ben? So they can just track if you've paid everything you needed to, or...
It's just an easy, centralised
Okay.
place to do it.
Yes.
The other reason is the ATO have pretty much told the average super fund that you must do it within 5 or 6 days. So the actual payment into your bank account is
right.
very, very quick.
Okay.
Wow.
Hence why they wanted to control the process rather than rely on an advisor or a
I
third
see.
party
So
to
you
do
don't
it.
need an accountant or any other
No, you don't.
professional.
No.
We've
to-
actually
oh, wow.
we've actually gone through the process ourselves.
Yeah.
right.
It's
Yeah.
advisable to, like I said, pick up the phone, ask some questions about what it's all about, whether it's to your advisor, accountant, etc. But at the end of the day, the individual is responsible for processing it.
Yeah.
And that's how it gets done. And it's pretty quick.
And there's hardly any criteria. Like you
Really?
literally just put in your details into the ATO, and it does literally get paid
Okay.
into your account within days. So
right.
ours is just setting an offset account at the moment.
Sure.
So when we're ready to do what we want to do with it,
And that comes
then
back to what I said before. Don't need to spend it immediately if
No,
you don't have to.
no.
Sitting in an offset account, there's obviously some value there
Yeah.
in the short term.
Yep.
And then, it's there if you need it.
Yeah, yeah.
I heard someone say to me, Ben, that if you take your superannuation out, then it can actually affect insurance premiums and insurance payouts and that type of thing that may be where you have that policy within your super fund.
Sure.
Is that
sure.
true?
Sure. So what they're referring to there is if you have an insurance policy under a super fund, there must be enough capital in there to pay the premium. Okay,
Right.
so if you are withdrawing money from super, you just need to be careful there's enough left. Now, there was a change in legislation where if you slip below a certain amount, approximately 6,000, there is that risk that it will lapse. You can instruct the super provider to make sure it's maintained, but yes, there is now more chance of a person losing insurance cover
Wow.
compared to a few years ago. So once again, it's a matter of picking up the phone, asking what the current rules are, and especially in this climate where a lot of people have made these withdrawals, if they already had a relatively small balance, they just need to be careful.
Yeah, that's a bit scary, isn't it? And do
Yeah.
the super funds let you know about that?
They do issue letters and warning letters and so forth, so I do believe people have sufficient warning about it, but as we all know, not everyone
Reads them.
responds to those as quickly as they should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it could happen, so it's a risk to look out for.
Just going back to the responsibility of the individual having to go to the ATO about their superannuation and pulling from that, as a client of yours and doing that and making that decision by myself, and we've gone ahead and done it, how does that affect your business? Because the way that you deal with your clients is you like to be able to give recommendations or options to people. And if we're just going straight to the ATO and we're doing all this by ourselves, then surely that has an impact on where you're coming from and what you're advising your clients. So at what point do you get involved? And if nobody's spoken to you in advance, when should they be speaking to you then about their future planning?
I mean, I just encourage clients to ring me for any of their needs, really. So that particular transaction doesn't impact me, except for the fact that we wouldn't have had an interaction over that. And I would encourage clients to call for those interactions, because it's just always good to double check the rules and so forth, and get an update on things whilst we're talking. That's pretty much the way I operate. But in this sort of climate, it's a rare sort of situation where you've got
Yeah.
dozens of clients potentially doing it. So there's no expectation that everyone's probably going to ring.
Yeah.
But I'd certainly, be more than happy to talk about it with clients.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Because it affects the planning and their strategy of where they were
That's
at
right.
and where they're going.
that's right. And you know what? I mean, in our business, in your example, if you've made a withdrawal, and we'll address that at our next review to sort of say, well, how were you tracking?
Yeah.
How are you tracking now?
Yes.
Let's factor in that withdrawal or two.
Yes.
And we can just, simulate, the future based on that. So from my point of view, as long as we address that in the near future, it's okay. Because like I said, it's a bit of a rare circumstance where this is going on at the moment. So,
Yeah.
and
So
hopefully it goes
probably-
back to normal relatively soon.
I was going to say probably best practice is to speak to you first, because if you do withdraw or you've made a mistake as such, then you've got to backpedal. The 10 grand's already spent.
Yep.
It's probably best to chat to you up front. Are there other options? What are you actually using this money for?
Always safest to call first. That's
Okay.
right. So we can run through some scenarios and then decisions that are made,
Yes.
should be done appropriately. So it's definitely recommended that we have a chat.
So what about the people that have actually used that money and squandered it? Like there's people out there that I'm sure are guilty of going out and buying, their plasma TV, thinking that it's a great opportunity for us to be able to go out on a massive shop. What are the consequences of that? Can you give like a bit of an overview, or maybe if people are listening to this, what sort of advice can you give to them, as if they were talking to you face to face?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I suppose the people that have done that, they may not be engaged in terms of having a financial advisor. So,
Yeah.
so I think that's a relevant point.
Yes.
People that just saw it as a once in a lifetime a cash grab opportunity,
yeah.
They probably are less concerned about getting ahead and formulating
Yeah.
a plan. So
Yeah.
not everyone, but
No,
some.
yeah.
So I suppose, with being so many people in Australia, you're going to have that sort of thing happen.
But what would you like to say to them if
Yeah.
you had the opportunity to sit in front of them and say, look,
Yeah.
this is a great opportunity. This is what we'd really like you to do.
Yeah.
And this is what we'd really like you to
I'd
not
say,
do.
I'd say if they've already squandered it the first
a bit
round, I
late,
can't do
isn't
anything about it. So that's
bolted.
unfortunate.
Not guilty.
Enjoy the new TV.
Yeah.
But going forward, if they are yet to withdraw the second allotment, I would just say maybe treat that a bit more seriously and consider the best possible use of that money. Because if you want to call it an opportunity, it's probably a one-off. So why squander it?
So would it be a good idea to spend that money on things like credit card debt that people can't pay off, or legal fees for property settlements, and perhaps if they're looking at selling their property, maybe spending that money on advertising costs with their real estate agent?
I mean, out of those three, repaying debt makes the most sense, because obviously this whole initiative was about assisting households.
Yeah.
Income, expenses, and obviously your main expense is debt and credit
Yes.
cards.
Yeah.
We all know that credit card interest rates are extremely high.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if a client said to me, I'm starting to swim in debt and it's getting out of control, this is an opportunity to provide a bit of a release from the credit card debt. Yeah, that'd be a positive use of the money in that example.
Great.
Yep.
And what about self-managed super funds? Do the same rules apply there?
Yeah, it's a good point. So, whether you're sitting in an industry fund, retail, or self-managed, these rules are the same. Okay, so because they're just different vehicles, but the superannuation law is the same across all three vehicles. So it's just a super blanket initiative from the government.
Because I've had some clients approach me about purchasing in a self-managed super fund, wanting to know the process and what the steps are. Should they do it? Is that a good
Sure.
way of investing their money further? So is that
Sure.
something you advise on?
Yeah, so it's a very popular strategy. It's a
Yes.
very comprehensive discussion. What I would say, some main points about that strategy is, first of all, if you're going to start a self-managed super fund, it's for people that want to be very engaged with their super fund.
Right.
Like if you think about it like this, you answer to the ATO
Yeah.
directly.
Oh, okay.
You may have an advisor or an accountant on your team, at the end of the day, you're playing the role of the super fund
Yeah.
because you're the trustee. So
Yeah.
it's not for everyone.
Yes.
But if you tick that box in terms of your financial literacy and ability to become a trustee, then yeah, property is a very popular strategy within it. And it can, as we know, Australians love property, and
Yes.
you can create a lot of wealth with that sort of vehicle. All I would say is, as I'm sure you would agree, you've still got to buy right. Even though
Correct.
you're using your super money to buy a property, you
Yes.
still have to buy right, because the main risk I see is if someone allocates 100% of their retirement savings to one property, and then that one property doesn't deliver from a capital growth point of view for the next 10, 20 years, well, it's probably not a great outcome.
You
compared
kind of
to-
put all your eggs in one basket.
That's it.
That's right, because there's plenty of viable alternatives. So you got to get it right. But yeah, it's a very flexible structure and very popular.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how are you taking your approach now with your clients? Because obviously all of our businesses individually, and we've talked about this briefly when we've done other get-togethers, whether it be on our live Facebook feed. How is your client base now? What are you doing with those people? Because our businesses have changed and we've kind of adapted. How's
Sure.
the financial industry changed, and how have you had to adapt so that we know what those kind of implications are from a customer perspective?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so a couple of things. From a communication point of view, we've had to adapt like every business. I mean, it's been the age of the Zoom meeting and so forth.
Yeah.
and
How have you found those?
we adjusted. You had to become an expert pretty quick.
Yeah.
And there was plenty of options in terms of what we could use.
Did
so
you wear your bottoms as well as your tops?
if it was an internal meeting, no. If it was with a client, yes.
Like everyone
that's
else.
Good
right.
to know, Ben.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. So that was an obvious change, but going forward, I mean, it's really all about just sufficient communication.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's things going on. We're assessing super funds and markets, and it's probably been, the most difficult to predict now,
Yeah.
perhaps than ever before. So
Yeah.
we're just sort of trying to analyse things and be as across it as we possibly can be at the moment.
Yeah.
But communication is what's important,
Yeah.
because when rule changes take place, like the extensions that we spoke about,
Yes.
you want to funnel them out to the appropriate people. So it's just keeping people informed. That's
Yeah.
what makes them feel better at the moment.
Yeah.
And
And why should
being
people
available when they ring.
use your services? Like, what is it that you do for a client? So, before COVID, it was this, and now during COVID, because obviously we're still in it. What is it now? Like, what's changed?
I think now this has proven that things can change rapidly,
Yes.
completely out of the blue. So if you have a person like myself that is across legislation and across what's happening day to day and has an interest in it, it's just, once again, it's information which creates comfort, I
Yeah.
think.
So Ben, from experience, if people are taking out this 10 grand from their superannuation policies, what should they and should they not be spending their money on?
I mean, the most appropriate use for that money would be things like repaying debt, whether that's credit card or mortgage, etc. You put it in an offset account so that you're not paying interest to your bank on your debt, or literally having it sit there just in case your job situation doesn't return to normal
Yeah.
as quick as you may anticipate. And then once the future is more certain, investment should come into play for that capital. And there's a myriad of ways to invest that money and use it. One being obviously topping up super again one day, or investing in property or managed funds, who knows.
What about
But,
cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so crypto, very topical. All I'd say about crypto is, now we don't give formal advice on cryptocurrency. It's not your traditional asset vehicle
Yeah.
or asset
Yes.
class, okay? Now, crypto is a sort of thing where you can have massive gains, but you can also sustain massive losses. And I mean, 2018, it was hot. People made a lot of money, but if you look at, I think I saw Bitcoin a couple of days ago, it's half of the value it was in 2018. So it's interesting. I mean, people do call me less recently, but there was a period of time where the phone was ringing hot. Should I invest in crypto? You got mums and dads that are petrified of the stock market for perceived volatility, yet crypto the level of volatility in crypto far surpasses the average stock market. So it's interesting that people are willing to do that.
Yes.
So all I'd say with that is maybe treat it like a bit of fun. You may make a mozza, you may not.
Yeah.
Don't put the house on it.
Or your 10 grand.
Or your 10 grand.
We're finding that younger demographics, so 20s, 30s, are more into crypto, Bitcoin, that sort of thing. Why would they be more keen to be spending their money there as opposed to the mums and dads? They feel safer maybe holding on to their super or putting their money into properties. It's quite different in those age brackets.
Oh, it is. It's just the generation these days. Everything's about tech.
Yes.
And that's a form of that, and it's the jury's out if it'll become a mainstream currency in the future. But younger Australians just love to get involved with that sort of thing, and they see the hype and so forth. So, whereas older Australians, it's just probably so new and so foreign that maybe it's just too late to get completely involved in it. So, yeah, it's just preferences. They differ.
Thank you.
So, Ben, just to end where we're at today, just to give a bit of an overview of your typical customer, what would they look like, and potentially what age range would they be, or would you like them to be, or should they be? So we're talking from, people in their 20s right up to, retirees. So what do your sort of ideal client look like, and what are they interested in, and at what point should they come and talk to you?
I mean, the majority of our clientele are what we call accumulators, people like us, really. So we're not knocking on the door of retirement, but we're not 18 years old either. So and why we love to target those types of clients is because you can help them so much. You might have a 20-year time frame of which to add value and make sure they achieve all of their goals, their lifestyle and financial goals. So we like to deal with those types of people. Yeah. And then you can form very strong relationships over that, as you guys will know, over that period of time. So, and I mean, I honestly believe, regardless of someone's situation, whether you're, mega rich or just sort of starting out, I do believe you will get some value with sitting down with a financial advisor. Yeah. So to answer your question, so because there's so many things that we can educate them with that I take for granted, but not everyone can. So I think things like balances, it's a bit of a misnomer that you need a certain amount to sit down with a planner. I'd encourage people just to sit down, have that interaction, and to see where it goes. Yeah,
depending on, it doesn't really matter what age you are. I mean, obviously, we've all been in our 20s.
That's right.
We bought our first property in our 20s.
That's right.
And I remember not so long ago thinking about those days and all the big decisions that we had to make. But then throwing that into the mix with what's going on with COVID at the moment, if I'd have been in my 20s during this time, and you've got this grant thrown at you, and this grant, and this opportunity, and how does anyone cope with that? So maybe your clientele potentially could change, because those people could become customers of yours, or at least reach out to you to be able to ask you for that kind of advice, because they're really big decisions to make.
It's a lot of information process as well.
I think that's the thing. There's so much info out there, and there's more than there was 20 years ago. And information overload, as it's known, is a real. It's real, and I think sometimes advisors just need to cut through the noise with clients and just explain, this is what you need to focus on, this is what you don't listen to, and then they just walk out feeling more confident and better informed.
Yeah, and knowing that those paths can change, and that's okay.
That's right. Well, they're meant to change. They will change.
Yeah, that's right. I think. Knowing what I know now, and obviously having a financial planner and being in your 20s and kind of making all these really big decisions by yourself, if we were scared about things back then, you're still scared about them now. Like but you also realise, looking back, that everything can change and it's okay. That path doesn't necessarily have to be set out for you in your 20s.
No, and it's very likely it will change.
Yeah.
Hence why it's important to review whatever it is you're doing, whether it's business or personal or investment. Things will change. You have to accept it,
Yeah.
And
Get the informed advice.
that's right. Realign the pathway as you go,
That's
because you must expect it to change. It doesn't move in a straight line. So, and so I'd encourage anyone to sort of reach out for those types of conversations.
Yeah. And do you offer free initial consultations or phone chats or Zoom meets with anybody? Like, what information can we give to our listeners for having you in with us today? What would you like to be able to offer to them?
Yeah, we do. So we're happy to sit down with clients for an initial consultation and just, there's no expense to that. That's on us. Just to sort of ascertain what's important to them. Can we work together?
Yeah.
You know, are their objectives, what are they looking to do?
Yes.
And that basically then will get to the point where we make a decision to move forward or not. So, very worthwhile because there's nothing to lose from doing something like that.
Yeah, I think it's
whether it's me or
extremely
any
beneficial.
advisor. It is, that's right.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you to Ben from Innovative Financial Solutions for having us in, coming in with
Thanks
us
for
today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks,
it's been
Ben.
really
Thank you,
great. And hopefully our listeners will enjoy this particular episode. So thank you to Ben and thank you to the Lip Talk ladies. And obviously you can find all of our information on our social channels, but also now on our landing page at liptalk.com.au.
Yeah, woo! Cheers!